Welcome everybody to What's the 411? This is the place that brings you news, observation, interpretation, and news commentary. Let's get it. Welcome back everybody to What's the 411 News. I'm glad to have you back. And yeah, it's Brooklyn's own favorite pastor. I think he preaches in Brooklyn or used to. Yeah, Pastor Lamar Whitehead goes to the Pokey on fraud charges, and I believe there's some other charges as well. You know, it's getting real interesting with this particular person because, you know, he first got robbed, and that was later said to be, a lot of people was thinking it was a setup or a plan, and that was suspect, like it was all planned out, and he was in on the plan, the pastor there. And there was also some talk in the past that, in the recent past, that he fraudulently took some money from an older person, an elderly person, if you will, if you want to say it like that. And some people would say, you know, God don't like ugly, right? And other people might say, you know, karma is going to come back to you. Well, that might be the case in this case of Pastor Lamar Whitehead going to the Pokey on fraud charges, right? So we're going to take a look and see what's going on. All right. So this is the Department of Justice here, U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York. This was for immediate release on Monday. It says Damian Williams, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, and Michael, looks like it says Driscott, Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, announced today the unsealing of an indictment charging Lamar Whitehead with defrauding one of the parishioners out of part of her retirement savings. All right, let's take a look here. Attempting to extort and defraud a businessman and lying to the FBI, Whitehead was arrested this morning and will be presented in federal court today before United States Magistrate Judge Gabrielle Gorenstein. All right. The case is assigned to the United States District Judge Lorna Schofield. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said, as we allege today, Lamar Whitehead abused the trust placed in him by a parishioner, bullied a businessman for $5,000, then tried to defraud him of far more than that, and lied to federal agents. His campaign of fraud and deceit stops now. FBI Assistant Director Michael Driscoll, I said Driscott, but Driscoll, said, as we allege today, Whitehead carried out several duplicitous, if I'm saying that right, duplicitous schemes on in order to receive funds from his victims. Additionally, when speaking with authorities, Whitehead consciously chose to mislead and lie to them. All right. If you are willing to attempt to obtain funds through false promises or threats, the FBI will ensure that you are made to face the consequences for your actions in our criminal justice system. According to the indictment unsealed today in Manhattan Federal Court and publicly available information, Lamar Whitehead, who leads a church in Brooklyn, New York, has engaged in a course of conduct in which he sought money and other things of value from victims on the basis of either threats or false promises that the victims' investments would benefit the victims financially. First, Whitehead induced one of his parishioners to invest approximately $90,000 of her retirement savings with him, but instead spent the investment on luxury goods and other personal purposes. Now, before I continue on here, you've seen him on TV before, and of course, because of that maybe fake robbery that might have occurred, and who knows, he might, if that turns out that that was faked as well, you know, he might get they might charge him with that too. Who knows? But it's interesting how he has all of that, you know, the jewelry and whatever other luxuries, because I'm pretty sure not everybody in his church probably has money like that. I could be wrong. You know, I could be wrong. And if that is the case, you know, he's not really getting money like that from the church, then how is he getting his money? Now, some might say he's being picked on and, you know, he might have legitimate business going on. And, you know, who knows? That might be the case. That could be the case. But it's just something to take a look at and pay attention to if you're interested in this case here, right? So, second, Whitehead extorted a businessman for $5,000. He already, again, he induced one of his parishioners to invest approximately $90,000 of her retirement savings, taking advantage of these old folks that ain't cool with him, but instead spent the investment on luxury goods and other personal purposes. Second, Whitehead extorted a businessman for $5,000, then attempted to convince the same businessman to lend him $500,000 and give him a stake in certain real estate transactions in return for favorable actions from the New York City government, which Whitehead knew he could not obtain. In addition, when speaking with FBI agents who were executing a search warrant, Whitehead falsely claimed that he had no cell phones other than the phone he was carrying when, in fact, Whitehead owned a second phone, which he regularly used to communicate, including to send a text message describing it as my other phone, shortly after telling the agents he had no other phones. Whitehead, who was 45 years old, of Paramus, New Jersey, is charged with 2 counts of wire fraud, each of which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison, 1 count of extortion, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison, and 1 count of making material false statements, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. The maximum potential sentences, as prescribed by Congress, and are provided here for informational purposes only, as any sentencing of the defendant will be determined by the judge. Mr. Williams praised the outstanding work of the FBI. The prosecution of this case is being handled by the office's Public Corruption Unit. Assistant U.S. Attorneys Hagen's, looks like Scotton or Scoten, Celia Cohen, and Andrew Rarbach. I ain't gonna say nothing about them last names, but you know what I'm talking about, are in charge of the prosecution. The charges contained in the indictment are merely accusations, and the defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. As the inductory phrase signifies, the entirety of the indictment and the description of the indictment set forth herein constitute only allegations, and every fact described should be treated as an allegation. All right. And then you have, we're going to go ahead and put that PDF here of the full Whitehead indictment in the description. So you guys, in case you're interested, you can click on that and read it thoroughly. All right. Public corruption components. You got New York Southern Contact, Nicholas Biasi or Bias, 212-637-2800. Press release. All right. We got all that. So what do you guys think about Lamar Whitehead and what he's got going on here with the folks? You know, like I said, taking advantage of some old folks, man, and they savings and stuff like that. This is something that's not new. It's been done to other elderly people. I don't know how old the businessman was, and if he was a young guy, I would assume he'll know what's going on, or not to go for any gain. But if it happens to be an older businessman, business person, this seems to be this guy's MO, is to take advantage of old folks, and maybe they're not being able to pay too much attention, or they're trusting personality, if you will. Seems kind of shady, man. Seems real shaky. And there's been in the past a couple of comedians claim to know of him, and saying that he was kind of a shady kind of character. All right, so yeah, guys, let me know what you think, man. Put it in the comments. Yo, this is crazy. This doesn't become a thing with some pastors out here, because they might not be getting money from the quote unquote parishioners or the people who attend the church. Using that whole thing, using the church as some type of front to do some dirty work, isn't cool at all. If indeed he has done that, allegedly, all right, allegedly. It said he's innocent until proven guilty, right? That's what they say. So we're gonna say everything is alleged at this point in time. It might be a different outcome, different turnout. Who knows? All right. So you guys let us know what you think, man. This is What's the 411 News. And again, we're going to put a link to the, it's a PDF link to the Whitehead Indictment, guys, in case you guys want to read it thoroughly or share it on one of your shows. For those who are checking this show out and might have your own show, I'm going to put that link in the description so you can check it out. Again, this is What's the 411 News. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, and Spotify. Yes, you can watch the video on Spotify as well. With that being said, again, this is What's the 411 News, WT4 News to be short, and I'm gone. Peace. Welcome, everybody, to What's the 411. This is the place that brings you news, observation, interpretation, and news commentary. Let's get it.